So Kalvin is here. Kalvin is the owner of Xodus Ventures. He helps people transform their lives in different ways. He helps veterans. He helps people with personal training. He does private security. He's a former military and he's Air Force. He has incredible stories from his own life and his journey. And he's actually going to talk to us today about his journey in divorce, in raising children, and custody battles, and dealing with the justice system, and probably quite a bit more that'll pop up in there. But the thread, of course, still being family and the importance of family and of person's self-worth and staying true to themselves. I'm sure there's more, Calvin. You want to pop in there and give yourself a little bit more accolades? I mean, there's so much there. It's hard for me to cover all of it in a short span, especially following that. I mean, come on.
Thank you, Alicia. I appreciate that. Thanks for the intro. And again, Michael, thank you so much for sharing your space with us. That was truly moving. And I was just telling Alicia through chat there, I'm like, damn, I've got to come after Michael. Thanks. Thanks for the lineup. That was good. Good. So you have challenged me to make sure that I'm able to raise my game, and I appreciate that tremendously. And I am appreciative. I'm extremely thankful for the Men's Summit. This is my second one. Alicia, you have done a bang-up job. Thank you again. In the midst of all that is happening in our world and all that's happening now, just thank you for being able to give men a platform to be able to share some very important things. Yeah. Today, I just want to preface that for the last few months, I've been going through quite a bit, and I'm usually a very private person. I grew up in the South, in Houston, Texas, and I grew up in a family that you don't share your stuff. You don't share your problems, you don't share your issues, and you don't open up about the struggles that you're going through. You wait till you've gone through the struggles, then you share. So that way you have a lesson to be able to convey. And so this has been a great transformation for me to be able to share my story in a way that's vulnerable. And I appreciate Andreas' time yesterday of how he prefaced his time and for leading and by example. To begin, I just want to preface my story is that I have done quite a bit of amazing adventures. I've been on television. I've gone to survival school. I've learned a couple of languages. I have traveled. I have done some pretty cool stuff. But the greatest accolade that I could ever say about myself is that I'm a parent. And I'm a parent of 6 kids, 5 girls, 1 boy. And growing up in my household, my father was a Vietnam vet, is a Vietnam vet. And he was in the thick of some serious stuff that went down in Germany where he was stationed at. In fact, I was born in Landstuhl at the base there. And my dad went through quite a bit of racism and in fact was integral in calling the NAACP to deal with racism on the base there in Frankfurt. And because of that, he was forced out of the military for his part in exposing some terrible things that happened out there. And that sets the precedent for my time growing up in my family from my time since I was born and lived in Germany for about 6 months before returning back to Texas and living in San Antonio to now, of how that set the stage for me, not only to become a parent, but the things that I'm going through now as a parent. I didn't realize then as I was younger, growing up, how that would shape me into the person I am today. So I'm 49 years of age as of this year, 2021, and I have seen and been through quite a bit of things. I grew up in Houston, Texas. I went to school with Andy Pettit of the New York Yankees. He was in my graduating class. Amazing athlete, phenomenal person. And I was one of four or five Black people that graduated from my high school. So growing up in Texas during the 70s and 80s, I had to learn how to survive. I lived in the inner city. I had cousins that dealt drugs. I had all types of things, from racist people that wanted to hurt me to having different people in my life show me their care and love to help me to be the person I am today. I'm the oldest of three brothers, 4 years and 8 years younger than me. We're Generation Xers, and the Generation Xers from 67 to 80. As far as if you were born in that time, the generation right after the baby boomers. And as I think about the history of the baby boomers, they were very stoic, very, went through hard times, whether it was the Great Depression, whether it was racial integration in the South. I mean, you name it, they went through it. And so my parents came from hardy stock. Father, not a great believer in the church. My mom loved singing gospel songs and things like that. So it was a different perspective in my household. I had a dad that didn't want to have anything to do with religion. I had a mom that was okay with the church and grew up in the church, and that. So it was a weird time for me growing up. And then my brothers and I, we always would get into stuff from lighting fires to red ants in our yard to get rid of them, to jumping bikes and destroying neighborhood ramps and having forts and playing outside and not getting back home until the street light came on at nighttime. You knew you had to be home at a certain time, otherwise there was a reckoning with one of the parents for not getting back in time. So I have some fond memories growing up, and I have some expectations that I placed on myself as the oldest brother when my parents divorced after 17 years of marriage, that I had made some promises to myself that I would never get divorced, that I would be the best dad ever, because my dad was angry, and he served from, I want to say from 67 to 72. And he wasn't diagnosed with PTSD until 2004. So if you could imagine what it was like at home, being with someone that was angry, that had night terrors, and we had no idea what to call that, or how to even express or explain his anger and his sense of being used, the anger that he felt when he came home from Vietnam after supposedly serving his country, to be called a baby killer and everything else under the sun. I didn't have a perspective of how to deal with that. I didn't have a perspective of why he was so angry, or why he was so physical and corporal punishment. I didn't understand quite a bit of things. There were some times where he was available emotionally, that he showed how much he cared for me and my brothers. And then there were some times where he's just checked out. And I just remember growing up that I don't want to be like that. I want to be different. I was excited by things that I watched on television, from Jacques Cousteau to Marlon Perkins, Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, to different types of shows that I grew up watching, saying, I want to see someone of color that does adventures. Is there anybody out there that's like that can do things, that can go out to safaris, that can go out and have adventures in the oceans, that are adventurers? Are there more people like me? And that was just a seed that was planted in my mind. In fact, it was a seed that was so prevalent in my mind growing up that I would imagine that I would swim in the ocean and would crawl underneath the bed of my parents and hang out underneath there for minutes at a time, thinking that I was in this underwater world. And in fact, it was because of that my head got stuck underneath the bed frame, and my mom was pregnant with my brother, 6 months pregnant, and she had to lift the bed up off my big head because it got stuck, and her water broke. And then my brother wound up coming early because of my big fat head getting stuck underneath the bed. So he was a preemie, all thanks to me. And so that was like the premise of my life of going into adventure, growing up. And then after my parents divorced, as the oldest brother, I tried to take care of my brothers by leading by example, doing the best that I can, and being a big brother and a dad, and helping them grow while I was at home. Then in high school, I wanted to become a pilot, and it just didn't work out in the timing per se of getting into a flight school. So I looked at the military because we had career day, and the Marine Corps, the Army, and the Air Force came through. And the Army bought me sandwiches so I could sign up. The sandwiches were good, but it did not work because my mom was like, you are not signing up in the Army, because of my dad's experience. And the Marine Corps, they wanted to sign me up and travel around the world, but my cousins were in the Marines because they were a couple years older than me, and they were in Guatemala, and they told me, no, you're not, I wouldn't do that. And so it was left to the Air Force guy. And the Air Force guy recruiter was good because he's like, why don't you take some language tests to see where you're at with the languages? Because I was taking Spanish at the time. And I wound up doing really good, and he wound up getting me a job in the United States Air Force as a Russian linguist, a cryptological linguist. I didn't realize what I was getting myself into with having to get a top secret security clearance, traveling to sunny Monterey, California, which just blew my mind after growing up in Houston, Texas, because compare Houston, Texas versus Monterey, California, there's a complete and utter difference, completely, from the fourth largest city in the United States and all that's involved with Houston to Monterey, California, where you see no trash literally on the ground. It just blew my mind that there was a place that was like that. That was my formative years of learning Russian from 90 to 91. Then from 91 to 92, I wound up learning technical training for my schooling, the part of communications where I had to learn how to understand military jargon. And that's about as much as I want to get into about that. And then after that, I went to SEER training, which is survival school in Spokane, Washington. And so my rite of passage was going through SEER training, learning how to survive off the land if I ever crashed in enemy territory, how to survive, what if I survived in crashing in the ocean, if I survived and if I was captured and POW, what it was like to being interrogated, how could I deal with being interrogated for information that was vital to the protection of my nation? What was my breaking point? There were some really good lessons that I learned about myself. And that rite of passage for me was the testing of my mettle, because I was hoping to get that from my dad at the time, but he wasn't in a place to be able to do that. And so I had to find it outside of that, elsewhere. It was a most important part of my life that helped to shape me to the person I am today, of going through difficult circumstances that would prepare me for later on in my life. So out of survival school, I go to Okinawa, Japan for 2 years. And that's where my world opens up. And I become a diver, a scuba diver. I get a chance to get on jet ski boats. I get a chance to mountain bike. I get a chance to do all the things I've ever wanted to do, because I was on my own and I'm in another country. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about another culture. And it really challenged me, because as I was in the Japanese culture, they really honor their elders out there. They honor their elders, and they also honor um, the spiritual life in terms of Shintoism, of honoring their dead ancestors. And so it shamed me that they were so dedicated to honoring those that were before them. And it also challenged me because I was so disappointed about how my dad raised me. I wished he was in a different mindset. I wish that he was in a place where he could impart important life lessons to my life. There was things that I wanted to know from him. There was things I would love to have heard from him. There were things that I wished I would have been given the blessing from him to be the man that I am today. So I had to find that elsewhere. And so while I was out in Okinawa, Japan, I had to find myself. I had to find the individual who I'd become. And I wound up at the age of 22, as smart as I am, to get married because I was in love and I believed that I had all my shit together. So I get married to someone that had been through some growing pains growing up as well. And I didn't realize how much that was going to impact our relationship later on. But it comes out later. So get married in Okinawa, Japan. We're both in the military. We get sent back to Monterey, California to learn Chinese. So because, during the early 90s, Russia becomes this interesting country that all of a sudden wants to be friends with America. So that was a time where my job wasn't as important. And so they said, so that since we're becoming friends with Russia, we want to send you back to California to learn another language. And so it was going to be either Arabic or Chinese. So I chose Chinese. And it was good that I did, because I was there in Monterey from 94 to 96, which was awesome. I had a great time again, being back there a second time, learned Chinese, and was a part of my spiritual growth as well, which will come into play later as I get to a very important portion of this talk. By the time we left California, went to Texas for more training. I found out that my wife at the time was pregnant with our first kid. And it was 1996. And I was going to be the proud father of a baby girl. And that was probably the best day of my life while I'm learning Chinese and important military terms and whatnot. I'm going to be a dad. So I get stationed at Fort Meade, Maryland at NSA, the Puzzle Palace, for 2 years, where I got a chance to learn what the world was really like behind that building. And lived in Maryland actually for 11 years after graduating tech school in Texas. Stayed out there from 1996. No, I'm sorry. 96 to 98, I was at Fort Meade. And then from there on, I lived in Maryland and had 5 more kids, 5 girls and 1 boy. And the thing that I realized once I got out of the military, and I don't know what it was like for you, Jake, but for me, it was hell. It was hell getting out of the military. The transition just was terrible. The jobs that were being offered to me just didn't fit me and my way of being, of who I was as a person. I was tired of having a security clearance, because with a security clearance, I can't have certain friends. I can't be, I couldn't be myself as far as having relationships with people that I wanted to have relationships with. I had to make sure to watch my P's and Q's, certain things I could say, certain things I couldn't say. And so once I got out to try and find myself, the transition was 9 months of being homeless with my 2-year-old daughter and my wife at the time pregnant with our second daughter, trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing. And the transition was tough. And that played a part in my eventual demise of my marriage, of being able to find something that I could transition into for work, because I wanted to have an identity with being able to provide for my family and being present for my family, that I placed a lot of pressure on myself. A lot of pressure that I had to achieve a certain amount of income. I had to be a certain way. I had to make sure that the bills were paid. And then when I didn't, I would beat myself up. And because I wasn't making it, I wasn't fulfilling the goals that I set for myself. And each time I didn't meet those goals, it was another notch. And that created tension in my relationship with my wife at the time. And just, it's interesting in a relationship. And Greg, I really appreciated what you said about the love addict and the love avoider, because I was the love addict that was looking for fulfillment in my work and my position and my things as a father and all of these things, and not meeting them. And then looking in my relationship to be with a person that would have my back and support me as I'm pursuing these things, but would avoid sometimes because of the issues that she had growing up. And so we're bumping heads, because she's the oldest of her sibling family, of her siblings and her family, and I'm the oldest of mine. And when two older siblings are in the room and we don't agree with something, somebody's got to win somewhere. So it was always a competition to make sure that we could one up or get whoever would want to get their way would get their way at that time. And I didn't realize how that was undercutting our relationship. So spending 11 years in Maryland, I had opportunities to do television shows. I had opportunities to do some things. One particular incident happened that I went to the Miami Film Festival to pitch a show, and I saw Busta Rhymes working out outside on the beach, and I'm all excited because I'm thinking that I'm gonna finally hit my goals as far as what I wanted to do, as far as making income and making the money that I wanted, stuff like that. And so I'm with my crew, we're walking on the beach, and I go, "Hey, Busta Rhymes, what's up?" And it's that moment that you realize that you just messed up, because the whole beach goes quiet. And Busta Rhymes is sitting there bent over doing an exercise, and he just looks up like, "I don't know you. Why are you calling my name?" And I realized at that moment that I had to slow my roll and not go after something so hard that I disrespect people and their space. That sometimes I got so into my head and trying to reach my goals that I would forget about the other person, or care enough to care about that other person, because I wanted to make sure that I was reaching certain goals of mine. And that was something that was a continual lesson that I had to learn in my relationship with my family, with my wife at the time, my kids. As I was pursuing the money, the jobs, the fame, the accolades, all of that. So I wound up losing myself in that process. I wound up having an affair on my family at the time that was devastating to me and my life. I wound up messing up tremendously, and again, seeking love when I was pursuing a love avoider and wasn't getting my needs met at the time, and trying to find it elsewhere, and really humbled me in my pursuit. It put a pause button on my pursuit of things to ask what I really wanted in my life, in my relationships. And I had a deep soul searching. It was during that time that I was given an opportunity to work at a camp to be the adventure coordinator and live on a $33 million facility where we had inner city kids come out and learn about environmental education. And that was probably the best 3 years of my life, working with that organization and that job, because my family was with me. I was supposedly working things through with my wife at the time, and I thought things were going to work out. I thought it was all going to work out. And then we wound up relocating to Colorado. And all this time, I'd been off and on in relationship with my dad, just to talk with him off and on, and found out that he lived out in Colorado. So I decided to, for my family at the time, to relocate back in the end of 2007, beginning of 2008, relocated to Colorado. And that was a learning experience, because it was I think it was like, I forget, every 15 years, Colorado goes through a blizzard. And I happened from Maryland to move right in the middle of a blizzard for Colorado. So I learned what it was like to use a wood burning stove to be able to melt snow to flush a toilet, because there was no electricity. It was crazy. And 6 kids in tow. So in Durango, Colorado for about 4 years before moving up close to Grand Junction on the western slope with all my kids, learning how to farm and to learn how to be self-sustaining, because that's what you do, right? When you have a big family and you're trying to figure out how to feed them and how to pay bills and stuff like that, you pick up the hardest thing you need to do in the world and start farming. That's what you do. So I went down that road. And in the midst of all of this stuff, and I'm living life and I'm trying to be a good dad, I'm trying to support my family, there was something missing in my life at that time. And what was missing was the ability to be authentic, to be vulnerable, to be able to express my needs and my wants at the time as a man, of what exactly it is that I need. What do I need physically? What do I need emotionally? What do I need as a man? Because I was constantly giving, and not realizing that my needs, I wasn't articulating in a way that was healthy, that could be met. And so it made a strain on my wife at the time. And she was dealing with her stuff, I was dealing with my stuff, and we were butting heads again. And it wasn't until we took this class on transformational mind dynamics, TMD, that we had learned how to express ourselves in a way that it was messy, and to be okay with that, because I didn't mention this, but I was really involved in church activities and stuff like that. And if there's anybody that's had a background in church or religion or anything like that, it's really good at being able to talk to you how you behave. It's very difficult at times to talk about how to be honest about your needs and to be okay with that. So I had been really good at being able to talk and expound on all types of things, but I wasn't in tune with the person who I was on the inside. And it wasn't until that class that I took that was transformational mind dynamics that I had a chance to express the person who I was and the needs of a man that was scared to share his vulnerable side because he didn't feel he would be accepted, or to be around men that express emotions or cried or laughed. I mean, it was an eye-opening experience for me. And it was also during that class that the coach at the time, he said something, because he would bring us on stage, work us through some sort of communication exercise, and reveal to the rest of the group what it is that we needed to work through. And he said something that struck me that was so transparent. He said that you two, talking with me and my wife at the time, have so much animosity and anger underneath the surface that you guys are going to need to deal with that someday. And when he had said that, it was like, how can I say it? It was like a light bulb went off that said, if something doesn't change, we're not going to be the family that I've always envisioned for us to be. And then that stuck with me. And that stuck with me because then I started getting back into my old habits of, okay, and then I need to figure out what I'm going to do for work. I got to figure out how to make money. I got to figure out what I'm going to do in order so that way that thing doesn't happen. That D word, that divorce, that ugly, terrible, traumatic experience that I went through growing up that I don't want to put my kids through. However, in my pursuit, again, I wound up trying to pursue my goals and dreams without having my partner at the time, without having her buy-in. It was all on me. And I wanted to be the hero of that show instead of having a person that I trusted to be able to help support me in that. So the resentment started growing. We tried different things to work together, counseling here and there. We even had the brilliant idea to do foster care. Why not bring in more kids to be able to help us support ourselves and help repair our family or help draw our family closer? And that was the worst thing to do. Foster care was good, but it went on for too long. And my kids needed me and their mother at the time instead of being caught up with other kids and their stuff. And it wasn't fair to them, and it wasn't fair to us, and it wasn't fair to anybody. And then finally in 2017, after going to New York to try and figure out what I could do to build my business at a marketing summit, and coming back, I think it was the last straw for my wife at the time. And she wound up talking with the kids and discussing about me leaving. And that was a tough thing for me because, again, I had these goals that I set for myself, that I was going to be a good dad, I was going to be a good provider, I was going to be the one that did not mess up my relationship with my kids and my family. And I wound up doing it anyways. Yeah, that was a hard thing. That was a hard pill to swallow. Like not wanting to fail, but failing anyways at the time. And so beginning of 2018, my ex had filed for separation, which in Colorado is pretty much the same as divorce. And I was asked to leave my home, and I had to figure out for 4 months, what do I do? My whole identity was wrapped around me being a dad and trying to be a good husband, trying to do the best that I can or could at the time. And I had 4 months to grieve the loss of a 25-year relationship. I had 4 months to figure out how I'm going to handle being alone, because I had to learn what that was like again. I had to learn quite a bit. And it was during that time that I was going to the VA hospital, and I saw a therapist who taught me about self-care, because I wasn't doing a good job with self-care at the time. I wasn't filling this bucket. And the way she described it is that each person has a bucket, and you fill it with the things that you love, like touch, sports, reading, whatever it is that you do to fill your bucket. And then at the bottom of the bucket, there's always holes where bills, responsibilities, things that constantly take and suck from you. And then there's sometimes incidents that may happen where there's a family member that's in trouble or something that's unexpected that comes up that also sucks from you. And she challenged me and asked me, Kalvin, what are you doing to fill that bucket? And when she said that, like another light bulb went off and said, wow, all these years I hadn't been taking care of myself. I haven't been really filling my wants or desires or things that make me who I am because I was so busy trying to reach certain goals. And through that, I had to come to grips with what it meant to love myself. that piece of being able to say, it's okay that I'm a love addict. How do I deal with that? It's okay that I'm not meeting my goals and dreams right now, and to give myself grace and space to actually say, you know, Kalvin, it's going to be all right. I had to come to a real moment in my life where I had to give myself a break that I hadn't done in years. That I wasn't meeting my expectations, and that it was okay, and that I needed to give myself time. And it was there that I believe personally that God was good to me to give me people and friends in my life to help me find myself. And it was also during that time that my ex was hurting and angry, and unfortunately, that anger was poured and shared with my kids. And some of the anger that I had while I was with them was also poured into my kids. And so my kids have had the perspective that was really tough for me to receive, that I failed them. And it was interesting because as I received that, it made me think of my dad and how I thought about him when I was growing up, and all the stuff that he was going through that I wasn't aware of. And then fast forward to where I'm at, I'm in his same shoes, and I'm dealing with my kids. I'm going, well, how ironic is that? I get it. For the first time, I got it. He was doing the best that he could at the time that he had, with the tools that he had. And I'm surprised, to be honest, as I think back on it now, that he just didn't lose his shit and start shooting up people. I'm surprised that he kept it. I'm surprised that he kept his sanity as much as he could. I'm surprised that he was able to hold off from hurting anyone else. And the amount of emotions that came up for me from that to really help me understand what he went through. And so in my process of the results of that divorce, I was accused of abuse. I was accused, and I have been investigated twice now for abuse and all types of stuff, which were found to be, they cleared me, which is nice, but the embarrassment of being an African-American man in 2020 and 21 to be accused of abuse and to be on that road is a very shaming, difficult road to be on. It was humbling, it was difficult, and infuriating. And I had mentioned this in the last men's retreat with Jake. As an African-American man, I was not given the freedom to say it's okay to be angry. I was not given the freedom to say, this sucks, I hate this, and how do I express this in a healthy way? So I would raise my voice and yell and get angry instead of figuring out ways to be able to have my anger express what it needed to express and then clean up afterwards. I had to learn that through trial and error. So as of today, where I'm at, because I'm still walking through this process, thankfully I'm toward the end. I have had to learn some important lessons that I want to close up now with, and hopefully encourage you all and encourage anyone that's listening that's gone through the divorce and they have kids, and maybe your kids aren't talking to you right now. Maybe they're angry. Maybe they're disappointed. I had to learn how to own my stuff. Where did I mess up, and be okay with that? Which is not easy, because I like to set goals and I like to achieve them and win. And I had to be okay with saying, you know, I messed up. The next thing is to know what not to take on. That whatever is mine, to own it, but whatever is my kids or anyone else's, That's theirs. And I'm not taking that on. And I get that maybe things were unfair and there's hurt and pain. I'm more than willing to work with you on it, but I'm not going to take your stuff from you. That's something that you've got to work through and to grow up in, and to grow up and deal with that. I'm in another relationship that is beautiful and authentic and real, and I'm vulnerable, and I get to communicate, and I get to share all my stuff. And the most important thing is I get to share my needs, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. It has probably been the most healthy, invigorating, wonderful experience of my life to be able to communicate and share my needs and be okay. And even though I'm not always reaching my goals and doing this or that, that I have the grace and the space to know that I'm still growing, I'm still moving forward, and it's going to be all right. And last but not least, I've had a chance to redeem my understanding of religion and church, because that was a very important part of my life. I don't have baggage like I did before with what I believe and what I stand for now. Prayer is a very significant part of my life, and I am okay with my foibles, my humanity, enough to know that I don't have anything to prove to anyone. I don't have to reach a certain standard for myself. And as I keep failing, to keep piling on the shame for myself. I want to encourage parents, adults, men especially, that there has been in our Western society an image of how we are supposed to be as dads and as fathers. And sometimes there have been pictures, whether it's been on the movies, whether it's been in show, whatever it is, that were not enough. And I had to learn through my process that it's okay. I'm okay with who I am. I'm okay with where I'm going. And it's not always going to be as difficult as it is with my kids. Hopefully someday we'll have a better relationship. My door is not closed to them, and I'm learning how to forgive and become a better person in forgiving my ex. And maybe one day we'll have a relationship enough that we'll be able to talk through some of the mistakes that we made and hopefully support each other in future opportunities to be there for our kids. So with that, I want to say thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to be able to share. Thank you. And open it up to questions in regards to not just parenting, but what I had to do in the courts and lawyers and all of that good kind of stuff. The process that I had to learn and to be able to deal with the accusations, the lies, the dehumanizing of me as a person and as a father that cares for his kids. So much is there with that. So please, if there's any questions, please share.
I'd like to start, Kalvin, by acknowledging you. Our lives are by no means the same, and yet I recognized a lot of myself in your story. And I shared my story yesterday. But what I'm hearing is this level of ownership of this is part, and some of it I did, some of it happened to me, but either way, it's my responsibility to deal with whatever that was and the ownership that you took in that. And that takes courage. That takes a whole lot of strength. It takes bravery. And I see that. I want to speak to that.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Andreas. Thank you.
I second that, Andreas. Big virtual hug for you, my brother. Thank you so much for sharing, Calvin. What I love about you and the way you show up and your energy before this speech, listening to you, obviously we all had a vision of each other before any of us gets a chance to speak, and thank you, all of you, for sharing your stories. It's just so amazing that there's such a powerful story behind every single human being here on earth. And by you sharing that allows me to connect with you on such a deeper level, because I've been through the exact same shit. You know what I mean? I just finished a 5-year court battle with my ex-wife, who tried to take sole custody of my child. I could be a family lawyer after all of this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need, I'm the back of the school, back of the classroom kind of guy, feet up on the desk, that doesn't even own a pen. I got a stack of paper this high that's like 8.5 by 11 law that I had to learn in order to protect my child from a situation. We'll call it, for lack of a better word, a violent situation with his mother. But thank you so much for sharing, because that hit home, man. And I feel a lot more connected to you, and I feel a lot more connected to all you guys. And I hope we can continue this conversation online and offline. And thanks for Alicia, for, my daughter's actually Alicia, she's Alicia, for connecting us to hear these powerful stories. So thanks for sharing, brother, and getting so vulnerable.
Appreciate that, James. Thanks.
I want to tell you, you were worried about going after me, but my brother, you did a very wonderful job. Because you have to understand, it's very hard to talk about a subject like that. And the way that you did it was so eloquent. It's so beautiful. And I know it was difficult, because you almost came to tears at times, because you was sharing this emotion so much. And so I appreciate your openness, because I know how difficult it could be to be that open about that topic. And I know it could be very hard. So from the bottom of my heart, I'm very thankful for what you did today. And you taught me a lesson today.
Michael, thank you so much. That means a lot coming from you. Woo! Because I tell you what, you set the bar high.
You did great, brother.
Thank you.
You did great.
Thank you.
That's beautiful.
Just feel to ask, Calvin, brother, how have you been going during the last months? Just holding your truth through having pieces like allegations put onto you, and going through this process. How have you been going within yourself? If you're happy for me to ask that, man.
Oh no, that's a great question.
Knowing the truth, yeah.
It was difficult for me that the allegations is who it came from. That was the most difficult part, because of the betrayal is so visceral and so palpable. And then once the initial shock and the anger of the allegations comes through, then I have a choice. I can either allow it to beat me down, or I can rise and stand and know who I am, and know that the truth will win. And that was not after one, but 2 investigations that I had to show up and teach the world how to treat me by the way I treat myself. That's what had to happen. It's one thing to have allegations. It's a whole nother thing of how would I deal with that, and how do I show up. I can either cower and say, this is not fair, this isn't right, or I can say, I don't care what you tell me, or what you tell me, or what you think I did, but here's who I am, and I'm standing in that, and I won't allow you to disrespect me. It had to come to a decision that I wasn't going to allow that to define me. And I didn't care I didn't care if it was the district attorney of the whole county. I didn't care if it was the police department or the police chief. You better come strong with me if you're going to come and say that I did something when I know I didn't. You better have as much background and as backing as possible, because I'm not going to let you come with me with that. And so I had to stand. I had to stand, Greg.
Powerful, brother. It seems like you've turned, like, obviously a massive challenge into a huge victory within yourself, like, and you're coming out a more powerful man than ever. So just celebrating you in that, brother. Yeah, massive
Appreciate
respect.
it. Thank you.
Kalvin, brother, I can't even fathom some of that. I mean, you and I have some really similar experiences going back to the military days and sharing some of the same stomping grounds at DLI. And I've had my my marriage issues, but I don't have children, and I've never gone through that aspect of divorce. And I think that changes everything with that experience. But I work with DSS and domestic battery intervention counseling, and I've heard, you know, for every one story where a guy did something really bad, I've heard 9 where I got a whole lot of questions that just don't sound right, and the court system is definitely ruling in favor of the woman without any questions asked.
Yep.
You know, and I don't want that to come out chauvinist. I know in today's culture, saying that is like, cancel me right now, forget my name, strike me from all social media things, because guys are definitely at fault in every situation.
Right.
But yeah, I mean,
the truth, Jake. The truth is the truth.
The truth is the truth, and I'm going to talk about that.
It doesn't matter. Like, we all have history. Like, there are people, like men and women, that do the things that are not okay in the world. And so, as representing as a one woman here, I'm just going to say, we don't deserve a free pass. We're all human beings out here. And so everybody needs to be accountable for their piece of the puzzle. And gender has no piece in the truth. It is only the experience of what is. That's all I'm going to say. I don't usually jump in and say anything about the women, but that's my piece. So
tell the courts that.
In that part, there's a whole lot of people that don't know how to communicate with each other effectively on gender regardless. And there's a whole lot of people coming from places of pain in their attempts to communicate, and not coming from places of empathy or places of understanding. But I'll speak on that more here in about 5 minutes when it's my turn. But Kalvin, thank you so much for sharing that journey. Because, I mean, from my experience, I have had one divorce that involved children. They were my stepkids. And I'm lucky enough that I did get to remain in contact with them to some degree. Not closely, but we didn't have a degree of animosity. And I mean, my sister and I are the only kids that my parents have, and my stepkids are the only grandchildren that my mother has. Through lifestyle choices and situations as they are, I never had kids, and my sister physically wasn't capable of. And she always wanted to be a mom, so that's her story to tell, though. So my stepkids were the only children, the only grandchildren that my grandmother got to, or that my mother got to have. So that marriage, in spite of its own issues, had its own God-given blessings as well. And I'm glad that relationship, although not mine, got to come out of that. But thank you for your, once again, this word keeps coming up in this summit, vulnerability. And that's that dirty V word that guys are so shy to talk about, you know?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, you're welcome, Jake. It's an honor.
I want to leave this message with you. Keep the faith in what you are doing, and everything you want and deserve will come together in time. Believe in God and keep the faith. He will give you everything that you think you deserve back to you.
That's powerful, Michael. Thank you for that. Thank you for that encouragement. I appreciate that more than you know. Thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing with us. All of you, Mike, for all of you sharing your story, and for Michael, that beautiful ending piece. Kalvin, you have a minute or so. Is there anything you want to close out with?
Is there a minute? Yeah, I do real quick. Our nation is really divided right now. There's a lot that's getting ready to happen, has happened, is happening, and will happen. Things are going to get crazy here in the next, I'd say a couple weeks or so. And the thing that I keep coming back to is the importance of having relationships with people that are authentic, real, vulnerable, and we're continuing this dialogue as far as communication. I believe that as far as men are concerned, there was something back in the day before the industrial age with men getting together and encouraging one another. And I really appreciate this platform of reigniting that again, that men get together and encourage each other to become better and to not just be better to reach a standard, but better as far as being authentic and being the best individuals that we can be. I really appreciate each and every one of you for coming and showing up, because that's what's going to make a difference in spite of what all that's going on in our world, not in only our nation, but around the world as well, that as men, that we come together and support each other. It's important.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kalvin.